Okay, we'll call the meeting to order. This is the November meeting of the Township Council for the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal. And I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. We have a long agenda, but most of the items, as you know, have been discussed at committee as a whole, so the meeting should move along fairly crisply. Item number 2 on the agenda calls for approval of the agenda as amended, and Councillor Barrett, I believe you have that resolution.
I do, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smell. The Municipal Council approves the agenda as amended with addition of item 16A, closed session industrial park land sale.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please signify. Motion is carried. And item 3 on the agenda is disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Are there any disclosures here this evening?
None here. None here.
Minutes will show there were no disclosures. And then I'm on item 4 of the agenda, which is delegations and presentations. And we will have a presentation this evening concerning the economic development strategy update. And we have Ian Duff here and Juliana Serge. And Ian, I believe, are you going to make the presentation?
I will.
And so just by way of introduction, this review of our economic development strategy has been ongoing for about 3 months. Ian Duff from McSweeney & Associates has been in charge of the project. And so Ian, we're glad to have your sort of final presentation here this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before I start, thank you for having us back. It's always nice that we can get around to town, so we must be doing something similarly, sort of right at least. Most of you we talked to during the process of this, so it was good for us. We helped you out with the original strategy, so it was nice to come back again and see the progress that you've made. Often as a consulting firm, we hear from our clients, how can you ensure that we will do what's in the strategy? And often our response is, well, we can't tell you what to do, but we can help you get there. And just a little story for those people that may not know, when we were doing the original strategy, we came in with some fairly hefty actions the first time around. It was quite a lengthy list. And we sat down with the CAO at the time and with yourself, and they said, look, this is great stuff, but this is ridiculous. We can't do all this. So basically gave it back and said, you'll regroup, you'll give us something that we can do. And as a consulting firm, we actually stopped and took light of that and paused and said, if our client can't do what we're delivering, we should be doing something different. So thanks to the first strategy that we did here, we actually rethought, and we redid our processes for consultations and for strategies based on what happened here the first time around. And now most of the clients that we deal with and most of the strategies that we do have a top listed priority section. And I just want to thank you folks, because that's where it came from, was the original strategy. So coming back to do this again, it was nice to see that we have a client that did the top 10, did everything they said you were going to do, and we were able to help you through that. So it's a pleasure for us to be back. I do have a presentation to go through. I'll keep it as brief as possible. I understand that you have a long agenda, and we can take questions at the end. Is that perfect? So in terms of an agenda, there's sort of 6 things we want to go through. I'll give you an overview of the project. We'll talk about how we engage the community. We'll talk very briefly about the vision. There's a new sort of approach taken in this list of top 10 priorities, so we'll talk about that. We'll actually talk about the priority actions and then talk a little bit about call to action, or the next steps. So really, Why do an update? Well, the first reason is because you actually implemented everything that was in the top 10 from the 2012 strategy. And again, I tip my hat to you, that's a pretty big feat. And you've had a lot of successes since 2012. When we went on our tour with the mayor, Councillor Morel, just going through the activity that's going on in the community, the economic activity and the community activity, there's a lot of stuff going on. And I'm not saying it's because of everything that you've done. I think timing had a bit to do with it as well, but there's a lot going on in this community, and this is a happening place, which is a good thing. So because the 2012 strategy was implemented, it's about building that strong foundation, continue to build on what you have, and continue growing. With respect to your strategy, you really want a strategy that can help you be strategic also with your resources. You know where to focus your efforts, you know where to focus your attention. And the top 10 priority actions really helps you do that. And the last thing, why you want to look at a strategy update, it's really about creating that positive community change. Things are changing in the community. Things are changing in Edwardsburg Cardinal, and that's a good thing. You want to make sure that you have that momentum to keep the positive change happening. In terms of an overview of the project, there was really 6 steps. So we did a strategic document review. We looked at your data, we did an analysis of it, and we actually put together a profile. We went through a public consultation exercise. We had some focus groups. We put together a draft strategy. We put that out back to the community for their input. And then we came up with your final priority list, which is in your strategy update. With respect to community engagement, there was really 2 rounds. The first round was more in depth, so we had some one-on-one interviews. We had an online survey that went out to the public. We also had some focus groups, and after we held the focus groups, we got back and realized we didn't take any pictures of the focus groups. So that's why you get that nice little focus group picture up there. After that work, we sat down and we literally put some paper up on my desk wall, and we started mapping out, okay, what makes sense? What makes sense for Edwardsburg Cardinal for the next 5 years? And we mapped out your draft strategy update. And in that update is a list of the top 10 priority actions that you should consider for the next 5 years. So we took that update and we went back out to the public. And the reason for that was really to ask, do these priorities make sense? And we'll talk a little bit about that when we get to further on in the presentation, but it was really just a verification of the actions that we heard and what we heard the first time around. Does this stuff make sense? We heard from the public. We made some minor changes to the strategy, and in front of you, you have the final strategy. So in the strategy is the vision. The vision honestly hasn't changed from the first 2012 vision. There's really nothing that came out in the consultations that would suggest to us that you need to change anything in there. I think the only thing that we may have changed was one word. I don't remember what it was. It was like the word from township to community or something very minor. But overall, your vision from 2012 has not changed. The one thing that has changed a little bit, in the original 2012 strategy, we really talked about sort of each individual community and the different strengths of each community and bringing that together really to talk about community-wide actions. And the strategy focused a lot on community-wide actions. What we're suggesting as an approach for the next 12, or sort of for about the next 10 priority actions, it's not about each individual community. It's about Edwardsburg Cardinal. It's about taking that look at how we function as a whole community, both from an economic development perspective and a community development perspective. Because that's what you are. You are one large community. And so that's the approach that we're suggesting with these next 10. So in terms of the actions themselves, there's 10 priority actions as we mentioned. The way that each slide is laid out, the top descriptor, so this one as an example, it's about developing an industrial and commercial land strategy. We talk about why it's being important. And specifically for businesses, businesses need a place to do business. So if you don't have properties, if you don't have buildings, if you don't have the proper home-based business policies, It's difficult for businesses to find a location to do business. As an example, you landed a fairly large tenant to the community recently. I'm not gonna name names, but their development looks fabulous. It took a huge chunk of your industrial land. You don't have a huge supply of industrial land left. So you need to work on that. You need to develop a strategy to figure out how we're gonna make sure that over the next 5 to 10 years, we have enough places for business to do business. If you look in the bottom left-hand corner, there's a little graph down there. Those are basically the results of the consultation for the second round. So what we want to see here is lots of blue and lots of green. So I'm not showing you the numbers, but if you see big green and blue bars, it means people support it. It means people liked it. Okay? None of the consultation in the second round indicated that any of this stuff has to change, but we thought we'd put it up there anyway so you can see visually what it looks like. So the second priority action is really about making sure that you have the resources to secure industrial or commercial land in the future if you need it. So you need to develop policies to make sure that any land sales that the municipality has achieved, that those funds go back into a pool, some sort of account, so that you can actually purchase additional land in the future. But one of the things that a lot of communities are very successful in terms of attracting investment to their community, they actually are the land developers. They're the ones that own the land. And it's much easier for them to negotiate with people coming in. So keep that in mind. If you are selling land, which I know you have, make sure that you have the proper policies in place to protect those funds from the proceeds of the sale to allow you to buy more land in the future if needed. Okay? Still staying on the land aspect, you were very successful when you had a certified site designation first time around. Go down that road again, undertake that process, find a piece of land, and make sure that you get it designated investment ready through the province. It gets you on the radar screen. It makes sure that the province knows that you're here, that you're someone that they can contact, or that an investor knows that you have land that we can invest, that we can put a building in. So one of the things that we noted is that, oh, thanks, get a little raspy. One of the things that we noted was that you do already have an informal visitation program going on. It's mainly done by your mayor. So your mayor is very well connected to all of the businesses out there, which is a good thing. You need to formalize that. You need to bring that in-house as well, so that staff participate in the visitation program. And the reason why that's important is because you're allowed to track results. You're then able to track results about what's happening with individual businesses. And you can also understand what the investment climate's like out there. Because the majority of investment that's going to come into the community most likely will come from businesses that are already here. The next action looks at your CIP. So in 2012, you went through a process of implementing community improvement plans within certain main street corridors or downtown areas of the communities. Don't think there's been a whole lot of uptake in that program. You need to advertise it more, let people know that it's there, continue supporting it. But one of the things we're also suggesting is expand that program to include derelict properties, brownfield properties, gray properties, any other types of properties within the downtown cores that typically you wouldn't think of as being part of a CIP. So there are different areas within Edwardsburg Cardinal where the buildings are looking a little tired. So it's not just a facade improvement program anymore that you're talking about. It's if this building comes down, how can we support the owner? And there's many programs out there that you can mimic. It's just really about continuing with what you have in the CIP and also being a little bit more aggressive to help your downtowns. Tourism. So you do have a lot of things happening here within the community. You have a lot of sporting events, you have some great fairs, you have things happening. Really what this is about coordinating your efforts and your assets, so you know what's going on and how they better cooperate together. So if you have a tournament coming to town, do all the stores know that the tournament's coming? Do the restaurants know there'll be people in town? Making sure that there's a better link between the two. Because the last thing you want, and actually I've experienced this in Edwardsburg Cardinal, the last thing you want to do is come to town for a sporting tournament and there's nothing to do, or there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to spend my money. So this is really just about better coordination of what's happening between the events and the different types of retailers and attractions that are out there, so that a tourist has the opportunity to spend more money within Edwardsburg Cardinal. You've done a fabulous job with respect to your marketing and communications program. Keep moving forward with that. You've made great inroads. You've got some great material behind me. Keep moving forward. You can also broaden that to include a residential attraction program, to make sure that people know Edwardsburg Cardinal is not just a great place to do business, it's also a great place to live. And that's one of the things we heard loud and clear with the consultations, that people liked it here. People liked living here. During one of the focus groups, we heard some comments about how safe it is here and how unsafe it is in Ottawa. I live in Ottawa. I'm not going to debate those unsafeness comments, but it is a great place. And that's what it's all about. If people like it here, make sure that you share that news. Make sure that you let other people know how great this place is to live. Because people are the lifeblood of the community, whether it's residential or business community. You need people here. So expand your program to include a residential attraction program. High-speed internet. So this is something that we heard a lot in the online consultation, that people have high speed in different areas. They weren't sure if it was the best high speed that they could get. There was a little bit of uncertainty. The one thing though that's for sure is that you need to be better connected with your business community to make sure that they have the high speed business capacity that they need. And if they don't, you have to find a way to help them solve that. I know there's different service providers in the area that do provide solutions, and that's great. But there are some areas within the community that aren't served at all. It's really taking that step and making sure that your community is fully covered with broadband. There's a lot of talk, and not just at the Edwardsburg Cardinal, all across the country, about how important broadband is. Broadband is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity, it's a way of life. So make sure that you do have accessible, affordable, high-speed broadband within the community. So these last two priority actions, they are carryovers from the 2012 strategy, and they're not easy. They're going to be tough nuts to crack. I'm sure there'll be, if you go down this road, there'll be lots of discussions, lots of happy people, lots of questionable people in terms of how happy they would be. But you need to find a way to create a community strategy that really looks at bringing the entire community together. A strong community will make it not easier for you folks to make decisions, but it'll also make it easier for investors to figure out where they want to go. It also helps you with your resources. Where's the best place to allocate our economic development resources, what we have to do. So at the end of the day, you need to find ways to unite the community. Actually, let me just step back to that one. I would like to say in this second round of consultations, people were much more positive and upbeat about the community. I can definitely tell you that. I remember in some of the consultations we had in 2012, where people from, I'm going to call it more closer to the water, didn't even relate to what was going up in this area of the community. We didn't hear that as much this time around. But we still hear conversations happening about you know, the different infighting between the communities in certain areas. All that to say, a united community is a stronger community. And the last priority action is really to take a good look at your waterfront. Develop some sort of a plan, some sort of an approach, some sort of a vision, an image of what that area can be. That's really, you know, you've got an amazing asset down there for many different reasons, community, commercial, industrial. It's just a great place for recreation as well. Find the best way to use that. It can become a strong economic driver at the end of the day if you do it right. It can be a huge residential driver as well, but you've got a major untapped resource down there that's being used in little pockets. It's how do you tie everything together and make sure it's connected. So we're suggesting that you look at doing some sort of waterfront plan or a waterfront strategy as well. So that's it for the priority actions. One of the things we'd suggest that this is, it's another call to action. It's a call to action for council and the community to continue moving forward. You've made so many strides from 2012 till now. It's to keep that momentum going. It's to keep the energy up. It's to make sure that you're doing the right things. You now have resources in place to help and support your economic development portfolio. Make sure you're using those resources to the best of your ability, and this plan lays out a lot of the things that you can do. So you've done great work to here. Just keep moving forward. Thank you. That's everything from me.
Thanks very much, Ian. So I'll give council an opportunity to, just if they have any questions of Ian, this is a good opportunity. Councillor Smith?
I have that. Thank you for the report. It was fantastic.
Okay.
Just I know you didn't want to use numbers, you used the bars, but how big was your response rate to the?
For the first round, we had about 140 people. The second round, we had under 40, which is typical. Normally people want to say what they want to say, and the second round isn't that high. But if there was a huge issue, if we would have said something that people didn't like, we would have heard it. And that didn't come out.
Okay, so broad general acceptance then.
Yeah.
Councillor Barron?
No questions, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown?
If I may, I just thank you, Ian, again, an excellent report. I always admire your professionalism and your insights. I'll touch the difficult one last. Waterfront. So waterfront development, I know in a municipality near us, that is an issue that can be a real bugaboo too. You know what I mean? Like people want to see no development. They want to have access to the water, and there's similar ties to this in our community and so forth. So that can be an issue, even though it's recommended. It can be a divisive issue too. So I take your advice wholeheartedly, but also with some reserve. Okay. The other thing is the CIP. You know, it was good. We know, and you say the uptake hasn't been as prominent as expected. Some people look at that, and I know they had a discussion about that in Prescott extending it, and they were saying, are we not, when you say about extending it further than just, you know, extending it further, are we not rewarding, let's say, the so-called slum landlords, you know, by giving them benefits because they're letting things go to blazes? Is that not kind of a reward for them in some cases? Is that?
If I may, through you, Mr. Mayor. A derelict landlord isn't going to take you up on your CIP. Typically, a derelict landlord, they don't care. It's that next investor that comes along. It's that next owner that wants to do something with the property. They're typically the ones that will take advantage of it. That's our experience anyway. And if the municipality ever picks up properties through tax sales or whatever they get, that's an opportunity for you as well to now have another tool to say, if we sell this to someone, we've got a whole toolbox now where we can get them to do something with this property. Your point's well taken. If you have and it's something that unfortunately that a lot of small town downtowns are stuck with, is derelict landlords or landlords that don't live in the community. Eventually they'll move on. They'll sell the property, something will happen. I look at so many smaller towns now that we're in the same boat as this community. And they just thought, okay, nothing's going on. But over time, you have one person in there that makes a change. And then you get two people in there that make a change. And over time, you'll completely redevelop your downtown. It doesn't happen overnight, unfortunately. It'll take a long time. It could take generations. It could be you have to wait until these landlords either pass on the property or it goes to some sort of a estate sale. And that's what happens. You need different owners that come in there. Your derelict landowners aren't going to be the ones taking advantage of this.
The last question I said is the most difficult. And then I'm glad you pointed out this community stronger together, because that was my theme as a councillor when I ran in the last election, stronger together. And however, like you said, it's somewhat better. But even tonight, we have an issue on, that's been back to us. There's how do you get around it? That, people take the fence to where, if we're looking at it as a council to try to save tax dollars, but without hurting the programs, in fact, complement. For example, what I'm talking about is we've got an issue tonight on the table about the swim club that came to have them together, join them together, and then we've had a movement to keep them separate. Now, the question I'm going to have later on is, if we keep them separate, are there going to be kids that can't partake in, let's say, relays or whatever it is, swim teams, relays, because there aren't enough in that age category? You know what I mean? I'm thinking of the kids, not necessarily whether the team was 50 years old or 20 years old. But even to do something like that, in today's present day and age, it's difficult to do, because there's this feeling that we're picking on the region where, they've had something for years or whatever. So, I came up with this term when I read your thing. I says, united by separation. How can we, maybe, if you just show the people, if you had a forensic accountant that went back when you joined together and it would cost money to show people, like right from day one, that nobody is getting shafted in this amalgamation. To prove it, dollars and cents wise, it costs money. Or, you know what I mean? Or do we maybe have, let's say, the tax revenue all from one area split up instead of the way it is now? Just have one area. Or, you know what I mean? Where the tax dollars from general revenue go solely to them based on the assessment. That's, you know what I'm saying about being separate? And then the other area, or whatever area is, keep that separate and put the tax dollars there. And then people would, is that the way, a possibility? You know how they say about, gee, people, well, they couldn't live together and get along, but once they separated, they became the best of friends and everything was, better. You know what I'm saying? If you follow me, united by separation?
Yeah, so.
I don't know how you do it, but I think the staff would be, but I mean, it's got to, there's just this perception that somebody's always getting shafted. How do we get around it?
If I may, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Jump in if you dare.
Yes.
I don't have
just
an
tell
answer.
me.
I don't have an answer for that, for what you're faced with. But I will tell you something that I've noticed, just from where I live. I live in the city of Ottawa. I worked for the city of Ottawa. So I lived through amalgamation in the city of Ottawa. And I heard you say amalgamation 4 times since you started talking. Whenever people stop talking about amalgamation and what it was like 20, 30 years ago, is when you'll start moving forward as a community. That's a generational thing. So, I'll give you an example. Where I work, so most of you know Eric. I may look older than Eric with my silver tips, but Eric's older than I am, and he grew up in the city of Ottawa. So Eric often says, well, this is what it was like back in the city of Ottawa. And I say, I don't really know, because I wasn't there, so I really don't care. Here's what I know. When I talk to my kids, who know nothing about what the city of Ottawa was like before amalgamation, they don't care at all. They think of Ottawa as being their community. So, you know, we talk about getting ready, we talk about, you know, doing stuff to unite the community. It can be as simple as bringing people together to share a vision. What do you want this place we call Orangeburg Cardinal to be? But it may be generations before you actually see a stronger united community, because people will be thinking about what it was like back in the day.
I'm just gonna jump in on another topic. One of the things that you mentioned in here was businesses need a place to do business. We have to have those places ready. One of the things we learned from the process here was, I believe it's the city of Cornwall. The city of Cornwall is the only industrial land developer in Cornwall. In other words, there's no private industrial land developers. When something becomes available, they buy it, they control it, they zone it, they sell it, they market it, they sell it. And that has positioned them quite well in the marketplace, industry-wise. One of the things that tends to happen in small municipalities is that they hesitate to pick up properties that become available. And I'm not talking about properties in the outlying area, I'm talking about properties in the community improvement areas or in the business areas. And if we were to adopt a strategy that we would take those kinds of properties into our asset base as and when we could, what could be the normal turnover time for those kinds of acquisitions, dispositions? In other words,
You asking that question?
yeah, I mean, just from what you see throughout Eastern Ontario, where you work throughout Eastern Ontario.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, there's no answer to that, actually. It really depends on the market. So, the one thing you need to do with land development, specifically from a municipal standpoint, is be very strategic. So, I know, just from our tour, that there's several properties located within the 401 corridor that if they're gone, they're gone. And you have no control over what happens to them. The one thing about picking up property, you have to be prepared to take a long-term risk or a long-term view on them. It's not a quick flip game, right? You want to get control of properties that serve the needs of the community. So in terms of length or in terms of time, I can't answer that. It really all depends on the type of investments that come along. It really depends on the type of investments that you want to go after. And it all depends on the market. So I guess the short answer to my long-winded answer would be you have to be prepared to take a risk. But it's a risk that you're taking for the well-being of the community.
Yeah, but there's another aspect to it, though, and I really believe this from my previous years in business. I think to some extent you can make a market.
Yeah.
You can make a market if you're well enough positioned, and I think that's what Cornwall has done for itself. It's made a market, and I don't know that we have that kind of strength, bench strength and financial strength to be able to do that. But I think that there are some what I would call really strategic pieces of property that, you know, it would do us well to try to possess them with a long-term view of turnover.
So if I may, Mr. Mayor, at the end of the day, if you don't have properties for investors to invest in, you're not in the game. Like, no one's going to invest here because they can't. It's as simple as that. I'm not saying you don't, but, you know, typically you need a diverse portfolio of properties so that you can attract different types of investors. But if you don't have anything,
No.
you can have the best investment attraction program in the world. You can have the best marketing program in the world. But if you don't have a product at the end of the day, you're wasting your time.
Yeah. Okay, so we've had once around the table. Does anybody want another question before I thank Ian Duff of McSweeney?
May I, Mr. Mayor, through you, may I please?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I just looking ahead to the sheets you gave us and so forth, I really found it interesting, again, about the challenges, but then you put in opportunity, how to solve it with this community divisiveness, you know what I mean? Form committees and then work through that and have hope open houses and that. The other thing I noticed here was that you said that we should have a high priority for commercial properties to apply to the province and so forth, like, you're talking commercial properties. An example, like, I guess we landed someone, but what kind of commercial property would we be looking for? Like warehouse space? Would we need to have those that are ready, or?
So the first step, normally we do an assessment to find out what you have. We didn't do the assessment. We did a high-level sort of 50,000 view look when we went with you guys on your tour. If you're going to apply to the province to have an investment-ready site, you know, ideally you'd look and say, okay, what's the best location, what's the best size, and what has a broad range of uses that we want to see in the community. That's another thing, don't lose sight of the fact, whether it's commercial or industrial, you want to make sure that you're putting forth those sites that have the uses on there that you want to see as a community. You're becoming, you know, the energy sector is quite strong here in terms of what's being done. You've got the port, and the port, I'm amazed at the activity and the economic wealth it generates, plus the opportunities that it spans within this corridor. You've got a massive food producer in Johnstown, or in Cardinal. Like, you've got a lot of stuff here. So one way to look at it is what kind of uses complement what's there. Well, you'll know that if you have a business visitation program when you ask them and say, like, what types of other businesses would really help you guys out? And you go through that process. So, you know, it's not just commercial or industrial. You really have to get down to what are those uses we want on those properties.
Okay, we've had a good discussion,
Thank you.
and so I thank you for your presentation here this evening.
Just one more comment,
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor. I know you thanked us, and I appreciate that. We love working with you guys. But your staff have been phenomenal through this whole thing. So although we've done a lot of the heavy lifting, they were right there behind us, giving us insights, information, telling us what would work, what wouldn't work. And also yourselves. Focus group was great. The tour, the insights we got from you guys, like, we couldn't do this on our own, is what I'm telling you. This was a community effort, and you guys were just as much part of this as we were, so thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll thank the staff too then for their working with you. I know Shelby and Deb have been part and parcel of the program. And as well, I know you had some other folks respond to your survey, so thank them as well.
Okay.
So thanks very much, and I guess this pretty much brings the project to an end then, eh?
I believe so.
Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
So you're more than welcome to stay for the evening.
I think we might actually skip back into town and see what's going on.
Kind of thought you might.
But thank you.
Okay, so I'm moving then to item number 5 on the agenda. Item number 5 is the minutes of previous council meetings and the minutes of October 23rd. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Thanks, Ian.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morale, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the regular council meeting dated October 23rd, 2017.
Motion is on the table. Discussion, if any. Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And then the minutes of the special meeting held on November the 2nd, Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Barrett. That municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the special council meeting dated November 2nd, 2017.
Thank you very much. Motion's on the table. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried.
Comes out.
And so now, is there any business arising from either of those two council meetings? If there's no business arising, then I'm going to go to item 7 on the agenda. Business arising, Councillor?
Yes, just one, I think it was a typo, I think it was talking about the FICE in the FICE. It's number 12. We talked about the meeting with FICE would be November the 6th. I think it's just a typographical error. It was December the 6th that we're having that, right? So it's just a typographical error.
I think those dates will be announced later on in the CIO's report, I think.
Okay.
There may not have been a typographical error at the time because there has been some change to those dates.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm on item number 7 on the agenda, which is the receiving of various minutes of various committee meetings. So first, the Public Library Board meeting of September 26th, Councilor Morel.
By myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, the municipal council receives the minutes of the Public Library Board meeting dated September 26, 2017.
Motion is on the table, discussion. Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And then 7B, the Port Management Committee of October the 18th, Councilor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smith, the municipal council receives the minutes of Port Management Committee meeting dated October 18, 2017.
Motion is on the table, discussion. Hearing none, those in favor? Okay, so then this is the first time that the council, as a council, has received the minutes from the Port Management Committee meeting. And so just a reminder then, on page 3 of 4, item 8F, this will indicate, well, at item 8F, we had asked, there was consensus from the committee to request that council direct the township treasurer to prepare a report with respect to the agreement with the Royal Bank and the negotiated 0.95% interest rate. So that was a recommendation from the committee. This is the first time that that recommendation has appeared on the council table. So I'm assuming then that that's the notice that the staff needs for that to proceed.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And then I'm gone to 7C, which is the Community Development Committee meeting of November the 6th. Councilor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Community Development Committee meeting dated November 6, 2017.
Thank you very much. Motion's on the table. Discussion? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7D, the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting of November the 8th. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Recreation Advisory Committee meeting dated November 8, 2017.
Thank you very much. The motion's on the table. Those in favor? Discussion? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Firstly, it was to join, now it's to separate. We were told that other than just being one team from two, there'd be more opportunities for our kids to partake. If they wanted to go to Cardinal, get extra practice or vice versa, they could do so. It looked like it was a good thing in that regard. But what about the numbers? Are they allowed, are they going to have enough numbers to partake as two separate teams in all categories wherever there's a swim team, and then there aren't going to be kids left out because there's only two people instead of four in there? What's the rationale for the change?
Go ahead.
So Mrs. Gladstone came and she explained how things were operating and how the teams come together at some of the meets because numbers might not be in the right area. So like for relay races, there's certain races apparently that it doesn't matter which team you're on, you can pull together different individuals for these different types of relay races. She assured us that the way that it's set up, there wouldn't be any kids really left out, and the issue that had come forward had less to do with the children and more to do with the adults. So the idea was to ensure that the as the motion that's there tonight states, just to find it here so I can say it right instead of. Which number are we for the motion?
So I'm just gonna find it for you here, 8B. 8B, here it is here.
So the motion is that the council separate the teams and accept registration, that the township accept registration fees as recommended by the rec advisory committee. So the registration fees for the swim team will be paid to the township, and the money's used to operate the swim team just the same as it is in Johnstown. So there'll be no difference between how the teams operate. The kids that are attached to their Bear Paws and to their Sea Sharks, yet they will come together at the meets and swim together in certain relay races. So doing it this way puts things back in, or not back in, but where the two teams are being operated the same, and there's no differential between the teams.
Brought together.
Yeah.
Yeah. Further discussion?
United together.
Further discussion, if any? Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor of accepting the minutes? Motion is carried, thank you. And 7E, the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance, Councilor Morel.
Okay, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance meeting dated November 13th, 2017.
Thank you, the motion is on the floor, discussion if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 7F, the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities Committee of November the 20th, Councilor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smale, the municipal council receives and approves the minutes of Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting dated November 20th, 2017.
Thank you very much. Motion is on the floor, on the table. Discussion if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. So now I'm moving to item 8 on the agenda, and item 8 is the various action and information items coming forward from the committee meetings that were held over the past month. And the first is item 8A, the Economic Development Strategy Update. Councilor Smale, I believe you have that
Thank you. Moved
motion.
by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, the municipal council receives the economic development strategy update.
Okay, and we've just had that presentation here this evening. Discussion if any? Hearing none, those in favor? And so we have a strategy to move forward for the next 3 or 4 years. Well discussed. And item 8B, the Cardinal Swim Team, Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that municipal council separate the swim teams and that the township accept registration fees as recommended by the Recreation Advisory Committee.
Okay, so we'll be accepting the fees for both groups then. So motion is on the floor, discussion if any? Councilor Barrett.
So, through you, Mr. Mayor, so these teams were put together at the request of the committee, as Councilor Morel said, and are now, we're just reversing the change that we made at the request of the same committee. With, is there, my understanding was that there was staff, a staff rationale behind the amalgamation of the team. So what is the impact of the of unwinding that change that we made?
Go ahead.
So the staff at the meeting indicated that.
At the first meeting.
And at the second, indicated that it was a choice of the committee. The committee there was no parent involvement at that committee meeting, so the parents did come forward and expressed concerns, and they had a parent show up and representing all the other parents, and staff were there as well. The impact on staff will not be any different. There's the same number of lifeguards as there will ever be. It's not going to change the number of people that are there. It won't change where the kids are swimming or could be swimming, because they can go to either pool. And the bottom line is that it's by ensuring that both teams and not just one, is that it's a township operated thing, and it's clear that it's township operated, not where one team is operated by the parents and the other team is operated by the township. So we have two teams, both treating the program the same way, and that it's clear that that's what's expected. So that's the difference that was discussed at that meeting.
Thank you.
Further discussion, if any? Further discussion?
Just for clarification, if I may, I don't want to drag this on, but just following what Councilor Barrett said. I thought there was to be some savings in the fact that maybe the day of the swim meet, instead of an extra supervisor, one person instead of two or something. I thought that's where is that not where we were thinking there would be some monetary change, the savings or something? Is that not one of the premises?
Was it? I can't remember now. I don't.
There was a presentation, at one point that if it was just one team, it would only take one a coach to go with them, but the numbers of kids involved might require two coaches anyway, because you can only have one coach with so many kids, type of thing. I think the big thing about separating them is it puts the two teams under the auspices of the township while still allowing for individual parental support of individual teams. Each team seems to have its own community flavor, if I can put it that way. And you know, the parents are still looking to have an auxiliary type of involvement with the teams. Any further discussion here? No further discussion. I'm going to call the question. Those in favor of the motion, please signify. Motion is carried. And item 8C, the fee schedule for building permits. Councilor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smail, municipal council pass a bylaw to increase the fee structure of the building department as recommended by committee of the whole, administration and finance.
Thank you very much. That's been discussed at committee. This further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? I think that bylaw is here tonight, is it not?
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I believe there's a public meeting required before we can consider that bylaw, so that has been scheduled.
All right. And so moving then to the FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities funding application, Councillor Smail.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett. Be it resolved that council directs staff to apply for a grant opportunity from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program and Asset Management Program Billing Initiative of Edwardsburg Cardinal. Be it further resolved that the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal commits $12,500 for its budget towards the cost of the above listed. In addition to the above listed activities, the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal commits to additional $36,100 from its 2018 budget towards the asset management activities.
Okay, the motion is on the floor. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Maybe just by way of explanation, the township already has an asset management program, and we've been working on it for about 3 to 4 years. The province is changing the criteria under which those programs are developed or constructed, and it's becoming a bit more sophisticated and a lot more complicated. And the Federation of Canadian Municipalities has an ongoing grant program that will assist us bring our existing asset management program up to a more robust level and be in compliance with the new provincial legislation. So motion has been carried. And so staff will now submit that application along with this motion, and we'll see what happens to that funding application. So I'm now on 8E, which is minutes of settlement for Gunthorpe. Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, that municipal council accepts the minutes of settlement for roll number 0701-701-030-1500-0000 and process a tax refund to the owners as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, Administration and Finance.
Thank you very much. Minutes of settlement from Impact. Further discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. So I guess, again, just a point of interest for the gallery, sometimes appeals of your assessment to Impact are successful. And this is one case where it was, and we're accepting the minutes of settlement and processing a refund. 8F, the ultraviolet system replacement at the Cardinal Wastewater Treatment Plant. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council award the purchase of the replacement Trojan system UV 3000B model to H2 Flow Equipment Inc. in the amount of $77,500 plus taxes, and direct staff to enter a contract agreement for the purchase, delivery, and start of the system, and approve a 5% contingency to be used at the Director of Operations discretion should any unforeseen or potential issues arise during the project, as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Thank you very much. Motion's on the table. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried, and this is one of the projects that was where we were successful in obtaining a grant under, what was the name of the program?
CWWF, Clean Water Wastewater Fund.
Wastewater Fund. And interestingly enough, the amount of the grant came in just about the tender, the successful tender for the project came in at just about the same amount as we had anticipated in the grant application. And so this takes a big burden off the users of that system. So 8G, a petition for drainage works by the road authority, County Road 2, Deputy Mayor Taylor.
I'm wondering, do we need an amendment to this, because it doesn't make reference to the area. It just says municipal council accept the petition and notify the agencies that as required under the Drainage Act. There's no reference to where.
The geographical location is detailed in the actual petition itself. I think if I was going to entertain any amendment, it would be to indicate the source of the petition, which is from the county council.
Just something
County
to make
Road
it more,
Authority.
because it's very vague. So, accept the petition from the County Roads Authority.
Yes, that would be good.
Councillor Morel, are you okay with that amendment?
So so we have a friendly amendment then? I won't call a vote on a friendly
It
amendment.
hasn't been moved yet, so. Do you want me to
Okay,
read this?
yes, so read the.
So moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morel, that municipal council accept the petition from the County Roads Authority and notify the agency as required under the Drainage Act as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Okay, and we discussed this at committee. Further discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. So now if I can just ask staff, so the motion indicates now that we will notify a number of agencies. Does that process take place at the same time that we engage the drainage engineer? I know you're getting that thing out. Is it, all I want to know is it a concurrent process?
No, that requires a second decision following, if I may, Mr. Mayor, following receipt of information from folks like the Conservation Authority as to whether an environmental appraisal or cost-benefit statement is required. It's a 30-day process, so we should be able to be back shortly with with the comments from those agencies, and then following that, council can decide to approve the engineer.
Okay, now, how many agencies do we notify?
I see the Conservation Authority, the Ministry of Natural Resources, OMAFA, our neighboring municipalities, and the petitioner.
So just for the benefit of the folks in the gallery, the area in question is the area immediately north of the CNR subway rail bridge, between County Road 2, CNR Railroad, and Highway 401. Possible, depending on the draining engineer, both sides of the 401, both sides of the CNR. Definitely will affect the town of Prescott, and more than likely will affect Highway 401, which is the province, CNR, and possibly the township of Augusta as well. And we will also be affected as we have some ownership of land in that area. Okay, so that's the first step then, and that motion has been carried. So I'm now at item 8H, which is the low lift station rates for 2018. Councillor Morel.
Yes, moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, that municipal council approves the 2018 low lift pumping station budget as recommended by the Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Discussion, if any. Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And again, just by way of explanation, when the low lift pumping station was built to supply raw water from the St. Lawrence River to Greenfield ethanol plant, it was built with the intention that Greenfield would incur all of the costs of the operation of that system on a yearly basis, including a $20,000 contribution to reserves to fund the reserve for the system. And we're obligated each year to notify Greenfield of what the rate will be for the coming year. We've done that. Council's now approved the budget, and Greenfield has had an opportunity to look at it and not provided us with any comments. And I guess the other thing to note is that the Greenfield will make their final payments on that system in 2019, is it? But in the meantime, they seem quite satisfied with the rates. And so that was a 10-year repayment at $20,000 a year into the reserve. So when the payments are finished, we'll have the complete system paid for and $200,000 in that reserve account. 8I, Edwardsburg Distribution System water rates. Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Bear, the municipal council maintain the current water rates established to the Edwardsburg Distribution Center as recommended by Committee of the Whole, Public Works, Environmental Services, and Facilities.
Okay, discussion if any? Hearing none, those in favor? This is the system that is otherwise known as the Wexford water system, Wexford and the industrial park. And rates have just been approved for 2018. And so now the next one is the item I, 8J, official plan review. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, that municipal council receives the official plan review briefing note.
Okay, we have the briefing note in front of us. Discussion of any of the briefing note?
Receives.
Receiving the briefing note. Okay, discussion of any?
It's, to me, it sounds a little unusual. Why are we just receiving a briefing note?
Well, I think the briefing note was prepared to kind of clarify the issues surrounding the official plan review, if I'm correct, and the information that we received from council, from county council. That's the purpose of the briefing note.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it was not honestly my intent that that be received by motion. My thought was just simply to provide information ahead of Councillor Barrett's motion.
Okay, so I've got in front of me a motion that says receives the official plan review briefing note.
I'm sorry, that was unexpected to me as well.
Well, we've got the briefing note and we've got the motion. We're going to deal with it.
Okay, so receiving it isn't saying we're agreeing with it, we're just saying we've read it, we know what's there.
That's right.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Okay, those in favor then? Motion is carried. And so that's the end of the action and information items. And I'm on item 9 of the agenda, which is the receipt of Councilor Barrett.
So, item 8J should be the motion that I requested on the agenda at the October meeting. So, the receipt of that briefing note has co-opted that, that spot on the agenda, but this motion should still come forward.
Well, do you have the motion?
I do.
Yes, the agenda's been approved, that's the awkward spot.
Well, it is a bit awkward, Mr. Mayor, and I do apologize for that, but if I may, my intent as clerk was that Councillor Barrett's motion, as presented in October, should come forward for committee or council's consideration. My briefing note was just intended as that, just a little extra information for you ahead of your decision making. Unfortunately, there was clearly a breakdown between myself and the deputy clerk last week when she was preparing the agenda, and I didn't read the package of resolutions this afternoon, so I really was not prepared for this. But unless there's something that appears under council inquiries, which I don't believe there is, then this is the appropriate time, and certainly my intent was that this would be when you would deal with Councillor Barrett's motion.
All right, so, and I understand the situation because we did have some discussion about it. And in the package that I get on the Friday afternoon, I don't get all of the motions. So if that motion that Councillor Barrett wanted to put forward, it is appended to the briefing note. So we do have it here in front of us. So I have no problem with allowing it to come on the table at all, in spite of the fact that the agenda's been approved. So Councillor Barrett, if you want to move the motion, you'll be welcome to do so.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Smale, whereas the township is required to review its official plan every 5 years, and it's 2 years overdue, and whereas Council Resolution number 2017-39 clearly states that the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal is not a willing host to the development of any and all future waste disposal sites or waste disposal operations, including at the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville site ED19, and whereas the current official plan and zoning bylaw identify a significant area for potential use as a landfill, contrary to the will of council, now therefore be it resolved that the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal immediately fulfills its obligation to review its official plan, and that amendments be made as directed by Council Resolution 2017-39 and as informed by the public consultation process.
Okay, so the motion is on the table for discussion. So discussion, if any. And as the mover, you can have first shot, and then I'll be looking for speakers alternating in favor and against the motion. So you may speak to the motion.
Thank you. So the briefing note that we have from the CAO does indicate that there's clearly states that we've got options for a review. It refers to us being the lower tier and that we have to conform to the upper tier. But that doesn't mean that the plan that we put forward has to conform with the plan that they put forward. We can request for a change to their plan via our plan. And if that is rejected, then there are levers that we can pull. And an appeal to the OMB is one that could be undertaken. The issue that I think thrusts this forward as forcefully as our official plan review being overdue is that we did pass a motion that indicates that we are we passed Resolution 2017-39 saying that we're not a willing host to a landfill, and that's contrary to our official plan. So one of those two things needs to be rectified, and as we have most recently spoken to that resolution, then it stands to reason that the official plan should come in line with that. And it, again, gives another opportunity for public consultation on that issue to further clarify where we have positioned ourselves as a municipality as it relates specifically to that issue, but also to our plan as a whole.
Okay, speakers against the motion, if any? Go ahead.
I just want to know, you said that all three of these options that were outlined by the lady from the counties are the same price. So to go through all these steps, public hearings, and send it on, and we are a lower tier that must subscribe to the upper tier, basically, and that's what the planner said. The planner has noted that the United Counties is considered an upper tier plan. Therefore, the township OP must conform to the policies of the upper tier plan. It is important to note that the waste disposal site referred to in Councilor Bird's motion is identified in the county's official plan. It's in their upper tier plan. Now, she outlines three options. A chapter to be appended to the county's OP, and she says this option would hinge on county's council approval of an application for amendment of their plan. So it goes back to the county council. They still have the oversight and so forth. The second bulletin says the current township official plan could be reviewed and amended to address the requirements of the plan as well as the county's official plan. The very last line of that bullet says the county's is the approval authority for amendments to the township plan. 2, where they say the county's overrides. And then the third one, the township could undertake an entirely new official plan. The document would have to be consistent with the county's plan and the provincial policy statement of 2014. An entirely new county's official or township plan would be for 10 years before a review is required. The county's is also the approval authority for the new township plan. So it all goes back to the counties. And they have the final say, and we're going to have an official plan that's going to change the rules in the middle of the game. And they purchased it 20 years ago, or wherever it was in 1998, for the purpose of having a waste disposal site. And it's, I compare this to the situation where we had those units in Cardinal that were on the ground floor as businesses, and then they changed them, you know, because they could to a residential. And even though we wanted it left at that, it became legal non-conforming. You know what I mean? If anything is grandfathered, as it was questioned one time, I think it was by a gentleman in the audience tonight. He says, what happens and so forth. So things are grandfathered. And this is changing the rules in the middle of the game. And the counties aren't going to be, I don't think, asinine or whatever to say, well, we bought this land for that purpose. The rule and this township that has, you know, some say is going to override our say because we're the upper tier and so forth. There's a certain hierarchy. You know, we don't overrun the federal statutes, we don't overrun the province, and because we're a lower tier and a two-tier system, they do have certain jurisdictional aspects that we abide by, and they have the say in all these. So I have one question for the staff, and we made through you for the CAO, through the chair. You're saying all three options would require similar effort and cost. What are the costs for this? We're going through an official plan review and all those things. I've heard things like 40,000.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current 2018 budget includes a line item of $40,000 for an official plan review or update, or whichever way council chooses to go. We have been setting aside money every year for the last 5 years, knowing that this update was coming. So it's not a $40,000 hit to the budget all at once. The official plan review must be done regardless.
Okay, so I'm going to alternate now back to speakers in favor. I'm assuming, did you want to speak in favor of it? Your second motion.
No.
Okay, so then a speaker against?
Oh, Councilor Barrett has his own.
No, I'm alternating back and
Oh,
forth.
okay. My position is this, we're gonna do one anyway. I do not wanna tie the official plan to ED19. I can't vote in favor of this. It's gonna happen, and I am not going to support a motion like this, that's just
Good point. Didn't think of that.
Okay, I'm gonna weigh in here and try to put a different perspective on this. The official plan is adopted by the township after an extensive public consultation process. And the purpose of that public consultation process is that the plan is the community plan. It represents, after a long consultation process, the will of the community. That's why you engage the consultants. That's why the process is basically taken out of the hands of the politicians and put into the hands of the broad general public through a public process. At the end of that process, the consultants that you hire bring you back what they perceive as the will of the community, and council adopts that. So in a way, it's not the township's official plan, it's the community's official plan. So my problem with the motion is that the second and third rationale clauses tie it directly into the ED19 thing. And the third thing that I really have a problem with is that the rationale clause directs what the council wants to get out of the official plan. Now, granted that council passed the resolution 2017-39, and the appropriate time for that resolution to be brought forward as the will, or if I can say it this way, the expression of the elected officials, is during the process that the consultants will engage, or that the consultants will bring forward. And perhaps there will be other people from the community that will support that at that time. But I think it's not appropriate that the resolution itself direct the outcome. So I have some problems with the resolution itself, but I agree with you. We're going to redo the official plan in 2018 anyway, and I think it should be a clean start to a clean process. So that's where I'm coming from. So Councillor Barrett.
So I think that the official plan, as I refer to specifically, is, you know, it's fueled by a public consultation process, and as you said yourself, Mr. Mayor, we're going to be the ones to seal that process, and as the voice of the community and the ratepayers, presumably that was that resolution 2017-39 was passed in the interests of all members of the community. So I think it's completely legitimate for us to outline one of the outcomes that we're going to include in that plan, because there has been a large element of public consultation to this point. Now, of course, if there seemed to be some seismic shift in public opinion on that issue, yeah, certainly I would govern myself accordingly. But to this point, we haven't paid credence to that resolution as it relates to this official plan. And if I may address one of Councillor Morell's comments, and that was about changing the rules in the middle of the game. The county bought this property not to sell it to a private entity for them to run a for-profit enterprise in our community. That is a bait and switch, and I think the province has very recently made it clear that you can't sit on something like this for 20 years and then just expect that that all things are still equal 20 years later. So they are not equal, and I think that there is a monumental task in front of any proponent of that project to prove that things are equal. But in the meantime, I don't resign myself to either things. One is that when this official plan is elevated to the upper tier for their approval, that it's going to be at a time when the composition of that body will be the same as it is today. And the second is that we need to agree with the outcome of that discussion. And as I said, there are appeals that we can make if we're not satisfied with that process. So.
Yeah, and I think you have, you know, your arguments are all valid as they would be made during an official plan review process. I think those are valid arguments to bring into that process at that time that process occurs. But my personal feeling is that they're inappropriate to tie them to the institution or a motion that starts the review process. So, having heard discussion around the table, I'm going to call a question on this. As Deputy Mayor Taylor has pointed out, the money is in the budget for 2018, and I'm sure that we have from the briefing note how shall I put this? We have 3 avenues in front of us, or 3 options in front of us, and so we'll need to consider what those options might be prior to going ahead here. So I'm going to call the question. Now, you've spoken twice.
Just
Go ahead.
Request a recorded vote.
Recorded vote. Okay, I'm going to call the question on the recorded vote. Councillor Barrett.
Yay.
Councillor Morrell.
Nay.
Councillor Smale.
Yay.
Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Nay.
And I'll vote nay as well. So the motion is going to be defeated. Now, having said that, as Councillor Barrett, or Deputy Mayor Taylor has pointed out, there is money in, or there probably will be, it's a little bit early to prejudge the budget process, but the first draft of the budget process that we saw from the staff, there is money in the first draft for an official plan review during 2018. So there are a whole number of issues, as pointed out in the briefing note, surrounding how this official plan will or might be conducted. So I think that the appropriate body to deal with this is, of course, the CDC committee. It's within the purview of that committee, it's within the mandate of that committee, I think, to examine those options and bring forward a recommendation to council as to which of the avenues outlined in the briefing note would be the most appropriate. And so just to review, because maybe all of the folks in the gallery haven't seen the 3 options, but just to review, the 3 options that are available to us is that the township could elect to write a chapter to be appended to the county's council OPP, official plan. Now, for the township to write that chapter would require the engagement of a consultant and a process to, how shall I say, devise the content of that chapter. And that option, presenting a chapter to the county's official plan, would hinge on county council approval and an application for an amendment to their plan, as you've pointed out. So that's one option. The second option is that the township OP, official plan, can be reviewed and amended to address the requirements of the 2014 provincial policy statement, as well as the county's OP, which means it has to be in sync. And that would also require the engagement of a consultant and a public process, a public consultation process. And if we went that route, our official plan, then reviewed and amended, would have a 5-year lifespan. And then the third option is a completely, entirely new official plan. In other words, starting from scratch, back to initial consultations, incorporating all of the requirements of the 2014 provincial policy statement, still required to be in sync with the county's official plan, still required. And if we went that process, again, our official plan, if it survived that process, would have a 10-year lifespan. any one of those processes is looking at a $25,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 budget. So I think it's the appropriate venue and the appropriate mandate of the Community Development Committee to handle those options, discuss those options and bring forward recommendations. And I don't know from the CAO whether you require a council motion to refer this to CDC, or whether as staff you would refer it to CDC.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe as staff, we could refer it to the appropriate committee. It's clearly a planning matter, and CDC is the Planning and Economic Development Committee, so it makes good sense for them to make that recommendation.
So that's where we'll go then. Okay, so I'm moving on then to item 9 on the agenda, which is the correspondence package. And I think Councillor Smale, you have the motion for the correspondence packages.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Barrett, that municipal council received correspondence listing with the following dates as previously circulated: October 19th, November 6th, November 13th, November 20th, all of 2017.
Thank you very much. Those packages have already been circulated. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. Excuse me just one moment, please. And the next item is item 10 on the agenda, which is approval of the municipal disbursement sheet. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that municipal council approves payment of municipal invoices circulated and dated as follows. Report dated November 1st, 2017, $143,742.53. Report dated November 2nd, 2017, $292,319.42. Report dated November 22nd, 2017, $504,449.88. And report dated November 23rd, 2017, $7,770.56, for a total of $948,282.39.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the table. Discussion, if any? Go ahead.
I didn't get here early enough to talk to the treasurer before the meeting. It says Town of Prescott Fire Service Assist. There's it's almost $14,000, $13,000. It's 2017-0529. And I just wondered, it's on, I think, page 8 of the package. I just wondered, is that like a quarterly fee, a yearly fee, or is that for extra help in the 730 fire or something? I just...
Through the chair, that's an annual fee billed by the town
Billed by Prescott to us.
to us.
What does it recognize?
Mutual aid.
Oh, mutual aid.
Mutual aid agreement.
Further questions, if any? You're hearing none, I'm about to call a question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, now, item number 11, quite a number of bylaws coming forward this evening. And bylaw 11A, a meeting recording policy for a third and final reading. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Smale, that a bylaw to adopt a meeting recording policy be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and number 2017-54.
Discussion, if any? Okay.
The
Councilor Morel.
through you, Mr. Mayor, Your Worship. There was a thing here about technical difficulties, and I just wasn't sure. I know it covers it. You're not guaranteeing, no one can be 100% sure of everything running smoothly when it comes to technology. Where recording a meeting was not viable due to technical difficulties. Supposing, I don't know if there's a place here where we talked about it. But let's suppose that we have a situation tonight whereby that camera's working for now and it doesn't work. It shuts off and you've got, what do we do in a situation like that? Can we just negate all recording?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, there are two separate policies here. The policy with respect to the meetings being recorded is addressed under the procedural bylaw. This strictly addresses what we will do with our own recordings. If there's a technical failure, we may not be able to publish. That's,
And if I recall correctly, the intent of us doing an audio-visual recording was to protect the corporation so that we have a record. Now, if that record fails us, our official record is still the clerk's minutes.
Clerk's minutes.
yeah.
It always overrides, the minutes override the video, correct?
Correct.
Okay, further discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question on third reading. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And so the policy is formally in place. And 11B, IntelliVote Voting Services Agreement. Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement for electronic voting services with IntelliVote Systems, Inc., and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
And we've discussed this several times. Discussion, if any. Hearing none, those in favor? So I have unanimous approval of first and second. Go ahead, Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, that a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement for electronic voting services with IntelliVote Systems, Inc., be now read a third time, and finally passed, signed, sealed, at number 2017-59.
Third reading, discussion. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And 11C, amend the zoning bylaw number 2012-35. Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Barrett, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2012-35 as amended, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading, discussion. Hearing none, those in favor? Unanimous approval, please proceed.
Moved by myself, second by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to amend the bylaw 2012-35 as amended be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and number 2017-60.
Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. And 11D, a debt management policy. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt a debt management policy, and that this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading, discussion if any. Hearing none, those in favor? Unanimous approval, please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that a bylaw to adopt a debt management policy be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2017-61.
Third reading, those in favor? It's carried. And then proceeding to an extension agreement for Myers. Councillor Smale.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to authorize an extension agreement, and this will constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading for the extension agreement, discussion if any. Hearing none, those in favor? Unanimous approval, please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, that a bylaw to authorize an extension agreement be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and numbered 2017-62.
Third reading, those in favor? It's carried. And a bylaw to approve a recreation fee schedule. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to establish the rates and fees for various services performed by the Recreation Department, and that this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading, those in favor? Motion is carried, unanimous. Please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morel, that a bylaw to establish the rates and fees for various services performed by the Recreation Department be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2017-63.
Third reading, those in favor? Motion is carried. And so now 11G, a helmet protection policy. Councillor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Smail, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt a helmet protection policy, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
First and second reading, discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Unanimous, please proceed.
Moved by myself and seconded by Counselor Smail, that a bylaw to adopt a helmet protection policy be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2017-64.
Third reading, those in favor? It's carried. And the Spencerville sewer rates for 2018, Counselor Smail.
Thank you. Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Barrett, the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt the estimates and impose sewer rates for users of the Spencerville sewer system, and this will constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, this was also discussed at committee. First and second reading, those in favor, please signify. It's carried unanimous, please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Counselor Barrett, that a bylaw to adopt the estimates and impose sewer rates for the users of the Spencerville sewer system is now read a third time, finally passed, signed, and sealed, and number 2017-65.
Third reading, those in favor? And just for the benefit of the gallery, the sewer rates in Spencerville are projected or approved now by bylaw to go up by 1%, which will be $7 per year to the residential user. And so now I'm at 11I, which is the cardinal water and wastewater rates for 2018. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morel, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2015-06 to impose water and wastewater rates for users of the Cardinal water and wastewater system, and that this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Again, discussed in committee as a whole. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. Those in favor? Motion is carried, unanimous. Please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Morel. That a bylaw to amend bylaw 2015-06 to impose water and wastewater rates for the users of the Cardinal wastewater system, water and wastewater system be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and number 2017-66.
Request a recorded vote, please.
Recorded vote requested by Councillor Smail. So I'm going to, first of all, discussion, if any? Hearing none, I'll call the question then. Councillor Barrett?
Yay.
Councillor Morel?
Yay.
Councillor Smail?
Nay.
Deputy Mayor Taylor?
Yay.
And myself, I'll vote yea. So the motion is carried. And again, just for the benefit of those in attendance, the Cardinal sewer rates will raise by 5%, which is $14.95 a year, $1.25 a month. The water rates will rise by 3%, which is $8.46 per year, or 71 cents a month. So the total, about $23.41 a year, around $2 per month. As we try to get these systems, we're pretty happy, might say we're pretty happy with the work that we've done over the last 2 years, bringing the rates into balance with the expenditures. Now our big challenge is to get the reserves built up to the point where these systems can stand on themselves. And just to repeat, as we know from the committee meetings, these systems are mandated that they must be financed by the users. Makes it very difficult for the folks in where we have robust systems and small numbers of users. Moving then to 11J, the bylaw to introduce 2018 industrial park sewer rates. Councillor Morel.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to impose sewer rates for users of the sanitary sewer system on County Road 2 and in the Eversburg Cardinal Industrial Park, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. So this is first and second reading. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? That's unanimous. Please proceed.
Again, moved by myself and seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor, that a bylaw to impose sewer rates for users of the sanitary sewer system on County Road 2 and in the Eversburg Cardinal Industrial Park be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2017-67.
So this is third reading. Discussion? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. So So again, just by way of explanation, this industrial park sanitary sewer system is the only system where we're able to monitor by means of meters the sewer rates of flow from mostly, well, actually all industrial users. And though that rate will change from 56.25 cents per cubic meter to 70.33 cents per cubic meter, we would like our industrial users to make a greater effort at recycling their waters rather than their waters that they're using, especially for cooling purposes. We'd like to see them making a greater effort to recycle those waters rather than dumping them into the sewer system. Now, item 11K is to appoint the Benson School Ad Hoc Committee. So I'm going to ask that bylaw to come forward, but I'm just going to make a few introductory remarks before I ask for the bylaw to come forward. And I'll be asking Councillor Smale to bring the bylaw forward for first and second reading. So I just want to say a few things about Benson School. We've all known since about March that the board was determined, and matter of fact voted, to close Benson School and did so effective June the 30th. The building has been empty this entire past summer and the current school year. So we also knew, and because it's part of the process, that once the school was closed, that the board would declare it surplus to the board needs. And that in fact happened. It was supposed to happen in June, but I don't think it happened until about September, but that's part of the process. And since that period of time, I've been talking to a number of people about what might happen with the school and with the property. And we have some ideas, but I'm not going to get into those here. Now, it has been suggested that there should be a greater community involvement in what might happen to the future of the school, and Councillor Smale has stepped forward and indicated her willingness to chair a committee that might look into that. We're going to allow, by means of the bylaw, to allow the committee to determine its own terms of reference, but there are some sort of sine qua non conditions. It's pretty clear to me that there's not much appetite to expend public funds, taxpayer dollars, in maintaining the building. So I think the committee that's struck is going to have a challenge to find revenues to support the operating costs of the building. Now, we've had the staff do some initial work to try to determine what the operating costs of the building might be, and I'm sure the staff will share that information with the committee at one of its first meetings. It's important that the committee develop its terms of reference very quickly, and we would like to have those terms of reference, Councillor Smale, by December the 8th if we could, because we'd like to have them before council for approval on December the 11th. Otherwise, council doesn't meet again till the end of January. And so we wouldn't have another opportunity to approve the terms of reference until the end of January. And frankly, I think we've only got from today maybe 120 days, 4 months, end of March sort of thing, for your committee to bring forth some recommendations. So with that said, I'll ask you to bring forward the first and second reading to appoint that bylaw, if you would.
Just through you, Mr. Mayor, before we go ahead, I know there's names listed here for the committee, but we got a late request to join from Mr. Charlie Burrow, so I'll also be adding him to the committee. Moved by myself, second by Councilor Baird, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to establish Benson Public School Ad Hoc Committee, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, and his name is now then added to the bylaw, Charlie Burrell. Okay, so first and second reading, discussion if any, first and second reading.
Can I just clarify something? This does not, like you already alluded to, the finances. This does not commit us in any way to spending $1 or anything like that for purchasing the net for anyone or any committee or any business or anything whatsoever.
No, there's no commitments.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I mean, we haven't even started negotiations with the school board, and I'll just get the CAO to refresh my memory, but I believe that the school board is not even in a position to be able to begin negotiations until, is it December 17th?
After the 17th.
After the 17th, that's pretty close to Christmas, which means that we'll probably not even be talking to the school board until around the 1st of January, which gives a little bit of extra time. I don't know how those negotiations are gonna go, and so we'll just have to take this, it's going into the tunnel without seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, really. Okay, so I have first and second reading in front of me. Those in favor of first and second reading? So that's unanimous approval. Please proceed.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Barrett, move to be granted leave to establish a Benson School Ad Hoc Committee, and this be now read a third time, finally passed on until 2017-68.
Okay, third reading. Those in favor? Motion is carried. So your committee is established. All right, so now moving to item 12 on the agenda. Item 12 on the agenda is the CAO's administrative update, and I'm going to let the CAO speak directly to the update.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First thing I want to mention is that you heard that there would be a public meeting with respect to the building permit fee changes. That is anticipated to be ahead of the next Public Works Committee of the Whole, which is scheduled for January 15th. So that would be at 6 o'clock, with the meeting to start immediately afterwards, hopefully by 6:30. We have developed the policies and procedures required for the 2018 election. Municipal Elections Act requires those procedures to be in place by December 29th of 2017. So they have been developed by a subcommittee of the county clerks, who have all got together and adopted the same policies and procedures across the counties wherever the IntelliVote systems system is being used, which I believe is 9 out of the 13 this time.
9 out of 13.
10 out of the 13.
10 of what? And we're the only ones with paper ballots?
No.
Oh.
There are a number that offer all three ways of voting. Budget 2018, we have had some good news with respect to an increase in our OMPF funding for 2018. So currently, with no real work having been done yet by council on the proposed draft budget, we are looking at a 2.17% tax rate increase for 2018. I think you are all aware that Bruce Hayter, our road superintendent, has tendered his resignation. His last day of work will be Friday this week. Jim Guest, who is a contractor that we use occasionally for things like drainage work, site supervision of construction projects, and he actually was the author of our road needs study, has agreed to fill in as road superintendent. This time of the year is a very difficult position to fill. With winter coming on, we have to be sure and have very good supervision of our roads, of course, and as well, we've had 2 new employees start in the Public Works Department, so we need a supervisor there to make sure that they are oriented properly. So Jim has agreed to fill that position on a 5-month contract basis beginning next Monday through until April.
And can I just interrupt for a second? Mr. Hayter's last day is this Friday?
It is, yeah.
And Mr. Guest starts on the following Monday?
That's correct.
So we really don't have an overlap period.
No. We tried.
Tried.
I thought we did pretty well to put that together in a relatively
I
short
agree.
period of time.
Yeah.
But yes, unfortunately, Mr. Guest is away this week, so. The mayor referred to the need for some recirculation of processed water with our industrial park users, and I haven't touched on that with respect to the supply of non-potable water to Prysmian. The mayor and I have a meeting with the GM from Prysmian on December 12th to further that discussion. I attended the Township of Augusta's emergency exercise last week, and it was very good. It was with respect to the flooding incident that we had along the St. Lawrence River the first weekend of May this year. And so they used that incident and a debrief as their emergency exercise, and it did provide us with some really interesting insights and also some rather frightening predictions of possibly at least as bad next year if the predicted snowfall that we have seen happens over the course of the winter. We could start 2018 with even higher levels than we started 2017 with. And if we have anything like the rain that we had in 2017, we could see some repeat performances next year. So everybody is being warned to prepare for that. In our case, we didn't have a whole lot of residents affected there, but of course our water treatment plant in Cardinal is going to require some work to make sure that it does not get affected if there is more flooding next year. And that's basically the highlights.
Right, everybody's had a chance to read the CAO's report. If you have other items that you'd like to discuss with the CAO, we can go around the table. We'll start with Councilor Morrell.
No, I'm fine, thank you. Excellent report, I always enjoy reading.
Councilor Barrett.
No questions, thank you for your report.
Deputy Mayor. Councilor Smith. Okay, and all, thank you for your report as well. I know you've been busy, and wanted to thank you especially for the note on the first page of the upcoming meeting schedule through to the end of January, and we're going to have some holidays, but not too many. So I need a motion to approve the CAO's administrative update. Councilor Barrett.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Snow, the municipal council receives the CAO's administrative report as presented.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Those in favor? Motion is carried. Now, item number 13 is council inquiries or notices of motion. Does anyone have anything to bring forward this evening? Hearing none. About to go on to item 14. Item 14 is the mayor's report. A few things to just bring forward here this evening. First of all, I just want to report for those that weren't present. The Royal Bank held their community meeting at the Drummond Building on November the 21st. There was about 15 people present from the Royal Bank, and I think around 10 or 12 people from the community. It was obvious that the Royal Bank had done an excellent job between the announcement and the time of the meeting in reaching out to their business customers. They told us that they had contacted every one of their business customers and most of their retail customers and all of their loan customers. And they had pretty much settled down the tone in the community, if I can put it that way. The end result, of course, is that there doesn't seem to be much community-driven support to fight this initiative, and it's a big organization. One thing that I did ask the Vice President for was the names of the higher up on the chain. Of course, he's just the chap that's tasked with bringing forward the bad news. So I wanted to have some names higher up the chain that we could register our disapproval. The other thing that we did manage, commitment that we did manage to get from them is we pointed out that we do not want to see another empty building in the community. And we have had reports at various times that that the library that we're using, the building that we're using for a library at the present time is a little bit small and congested. And there is a possibility that this building would service that function. So we did ask him if he would assist us in making overtures to have the building donated to the community for the purposes of a library. And we did receive his commitment to help us make that presentation. Just want to indicate, and I need the CAO's help here, the FICE report, First Impressions of Communities. So Cardinal was paired with Pakenham, I believe, and Cardinal will report to Pakenham, and I don't have that date.
I believe it was this afternoon.
It was this afternoon, okay, so that was today. which is November the 27th. And then Pakenham will come here to our council chambers, I believe, to report to Cardinal team on Monday, December the 4th at 5 o'clock. And those dates and times now seem to be solidified. I just wanted to mention Bill 68. Presently before well, actually a lot of it has been passed. Bill 68, Modernizing Ontario's Municipal Legislation Act, it's called. We had an excellent presentation at the County Council from Carol Church from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and she did provide a great briefing note during her presentation. The Act is being implemented in 3 stages. And some of the changes to the Act have already taken place. Some other changes take place on January the 1st, 2018, and still a third tranche of changes on January the 1st, 2019. So I have asked the CAO if she would engage with Carol Church to see whether or not she might be interested in making a presentation to this council, because I think it's information that all of us should be familiar with. Next item, I'll be attending the Scaling Up Conference in Ottawa tomorrow in support of Bio-Industrial Innovation Canada. Now this is the group BIC that we went to visit in Sarnia to see what it is they're doing in Sarnia. Great discussion about a potential relationship between the St. Lawrence Economic Development Corridor Commission and the BIC, a possible relationship. The commission itself, the St. Lawrence Economic Development Commission, does not have at this point a go-forward plan as to how the commission might interface with BIC. But suffice it to say that BIC is intensely interested in working with the DuPont site to bring forward projects based on the bioeconomy, which is basically making, I was going to call it hydrocarbons, but they're not hydrocarbons. It's basically making materials that were previously made with hydrocarbons from bio sources. Straw, corn stover, and wood fiber. So we don't have any idea where this relationship might go, but BIC is finishing a 5-year project, which was an expenditure of around $60 million, which they leveraged up tremendously. And their next tranche of funding with the federal government, they're interested in partnering with another site in Eastern Ontario to make a bio-industrial innovation network with the Sarnia site combined with an Eastern Ontario site, and going to the federal government for a much larger amount of money for another 5-year period. So we'll see where that leads. I just wanted to say that, and to report that the warden and I have had a rather serious meeting with the county CAO and the social services staff at county concerning the Maples, the Westport Community Housing Building, and Helm Street and Cardinal. Clearly, we have 2 buildings which have serious relationship problems with the tenant group. And not just with the tenant group, but with interference from outside. Now, subsequent to the meeting with the CAO and the warden, we decided that we would try a strategy to try to get these buildings brought into a more comfortable living space for those people that are living in them. And let me indicate to you that Friday ago, I was just on the way back from the Economic Development Conference in Kemptville when I was called to the Helm Street apartment because of a rather serious situation there. There had been a drug bust in the building. Citizens tell me that the building is very well known as a place where often drug deals are consummated, if I can put it that way. The drug bust involved not only a lot of very high and dangerous drugs, but also some heavy guns and ammunition. People were removed from the building, they were jailed overnight. The counties took immediate action to evict the tenant, but that eviction has to go before the Tenant Review Board, which took place this past Monday, and for inexplicable reasons, and in spite of testimony from the police, charges being laid, testimony from residents, the adjudicator would not render a decision as to whether an eviction would take place. There's only one name on the lease, that's the person that would be an eviction. The other person that was in the unit at the time of the drug bust was issued with a no trespassing order, but has been seen several times in the building since. So there was to be a meeting with the residents and the social services staff tomorrow, but by some quirk, that meeting has been postponed until a later date. I've asked to be present at the meeting. Councillor Smaley might want to be present as well as the Ward 1 councillor, Deputy Mayor as well, any other members of council. Clearly the issue is the residents are not comfortable. When I met with the residents twice now in the past week, I have 3 people want out of the building immediately that have applied for transfers, and a number of people that expressed serious concerns. And as I've said at County Council, these folks are basically living in caves. They go inside their unit, they lock their door, they barricade their door, and they're living in fear, some of them. And that just plain shouldn't be happening in a social housing building. So I'm very concerned about it. And I just want to make sure that council is aware of those concerns as well. And my last item concerns economic development, prospects, initiatives, and processes. Can't say a lot, but I just want to make the following points. Right now we are investigating or monitoring, if I can put it that way, a number of land acquisition opportunities. We'll be considering later tonight 2 offers to purchase industrial land. We are assisting a number of third-party entrepreneurs in our community with projects that they're trying to realize on. We're following the Jones Rail Development Project very carefully, and it's proceeding with much better than ever anticipated. And we're following as well the possible sale of large industrial property, which we think within the next month will transfer from an existing industrial user to a second industrial user, and there may be some loss of employment, but some other opportunities. So, as pointed out by Ian Duff, there are a whole number of initiatives taking place right now, and I think this little list that I've got in front of me gives me 10 that I'm trying to keep track of in my mind, and the CAO and I are working very closely together with a number of third parties to try to help these people come to realizations of their projects. With any luck, I think we'll see some action on some of those within the first quarter of 2018. So that's my mayor's report, and I'm looking forward to the motion to receive the mayor's report. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Morrell, that this council receives the mayor's report as presented.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any? Hearing none, those in favor? Motion is carried. And we're now at item 15 on the agenda, which is the question period. So ladies and gentlemen, I see the press is here. Give the press first shot.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a 20-minute question period. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. There was, you mentioned reports from County's Council this evening. There was recently a letter from the province, the Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, to County's Council indicating that they were going to cease certain parts of the certificate granted to the counties in 1998. So I'm wondering if you could share with council what the report, the initial report is, or what the initial interpretation from County's Council is, and can you confirm whether or not County's Council is still negotiating with Tomlinson?
Well, let me put it this way. The letter from the ministry, I'm trying to think whether the letter, I think the letter is made public, and the letter makes it clear that clauses 5 and 6, I may have the wrong numbers,
10 and 11.
10 and 11, those two clauses are temporarily suspended by the director or whoever has the competent authority to do that. Those two clauses have been temporarily suspended. That letter from the ministry to the CAO suspending those clauses has been referred to the county solicitors. For what purpose, I don't know, but it's been referred to them for response. There are no negotiations ongoing with Tomlinson. There have been no negotiations with Tomlinson since late 2016, and there are none now. So I don't know what else I can say about that. There's been no discussion about ED19 at County Council at all, other than that letter being tabled in the CAO indicating that it's been referred to the lawyers. That's it.
Thank you, Chair.
Are there any other questions here? Second? Okay.
At the last County's Council meeting, Mayor Haley made a comment about not being able to meet budget projections based on the not meeting a theoretical sale of ED19 to Tomlinson. You say there's no negotiations on the table. I'm wondering if you can speak to those comments and what your interpretation of those comments might be.
Well, that's very interesting. First of all, County Council is an interesting forum for debate, if I can put it that way. You never know where people are coming from. But Mayor Haley's comments were made in the context of a debate over a bylaw which counties, how am I going to phrase this? Bylaw which counties has been working on for some period of time. The purpose of the bylaw was to institute a 0.5% special county levy throughout the United Counties to raise about $186,000 a year to go into a special reserve to fund hospital capital costs. Now, the impetus for that came about a year ago when we had the first overtures from Brockville General Hospital that they were going to be engaging in a major hospital redevelopment project. And the current model that the province of Ontario uses is that the province will fund 90% of the capital costs of new hospital construction, but it's up to the local community to raise the additional 10% of the new construction, plus provide all the equipment in the newly constructed area. About 6 months ago, the Brockville General Hospital went to the City of Brockville and they requested of the City of Brockville $2.25 million, if I've got the number right. And Brockville, I think, agreed to fund that amount of money over a 10-year period, I think. The Brockville General Hospital has also come to County Council, also looking for about $200,000, no more than that, $1 million, something over $1 million. Yeah, the request of Brockville was $2.25 million, I think. And I don't have all these numbers on at the tip of my fingers. But anyway, The Brockville General Hospital also came to county and was looking for a major contribution, and we felt that by instituting this 0.5% special levy, and putting that into a separate fund, we would be able to accommodate the Brockville General Hospital request. And then, of course, what happened subsequent to that was the Kingston Hospital came, and they had all kinds of facts and figures of how many people from from Leeds and Grenville use the Kingston Hospital. And on the basis of our share of usage of the Kingston Hospital, they had a request of us for $125,000 a year over a 10-year period to support their building project. Now, it's either those hospital projects are funded at the county level and supported by the county, or all of those hospital requests come to 10 different townships. Some of us on county council feel that it's much more effective and efficient for the county to levy the 0.5% and build up a reserve account to accommodate that. Others, such as Mayor Haley, don't want to do that. And Mayor Haley, while I don't want to speak to his motives, was trying to make the point, perhaps poorly, that we were giving up a source of revenue that could have been used for that purpose, if I can put it that way. But at the same time, Mayor Haley has never really been a proponent of ED19 anyway. So I can't speak for his motives. I don't know where he was coming from, and I think it's up to him to speak for himself. But that was the context of his remarks. Are there any other questions? Okay, so if there's no other questions, we have a closed session tonight, and I think the purpose of the closed session tonight is to deal with potential acquisition or disposition of land, is it not?
Yes, Councillor Smale.
And I think Councillor Smale has that motion.
I do somewhere here. Okay, myself, seconded by Councillor Barrett. That municipal council proceed into closed session at 8:40 p.m. For purposes of pending or acquisition and disposition of land or local board purposes, specifically industrial apartments.
Thank you very much.
I'll send them to.
Those in favor of the motion, please signify. The motion is carried. We'll just have a 10-minute break.